The summer sun hung low over Springfield, casting a warm glow on the streets bustling with families enjoying the annual festival. My husband, Mark, had suggested this trip as a way to reconnect, but I felt more like a shadow than his partner. We had been married for nearly 20 years, and somewhere along the way, I had become invisible to him. The spark that once ignited our conversations had flickered out, replaced by mundane routines and unspoken frustrations. As we arrived at the hotel, I noticed my stepson, Jake, walking ahead of us. At 21, he was no longer the awkward teenager I remembered. He had grown into an attractive young man with an easy confidence that drew attention. I couldn't help but feel a pang of something unfamiliar as I watched him chat animatedly with his friends in the lobby. Mark was busy checking us in while I lingered behind, feeling out of place. The mix-up with our room reservations meant that Jake and I would share a room for the first night. Mark would take another room down the hall. The idea unsettled me. It felt too intimate given my current state of mind. As we settled into our shared space, Jake tossed his bag onto one of the beds and turned to me with a grin. "Guess we're roommates for the night." "Lucky us," I replied lightly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. The evening unfolded slowly. We ventured out to explore the festival's offerings, food stalls overflowing with local delicacies and booths showcasing handmade crafts. Laughter echoed around us as families enjoyed rides and games under strings of twinkling lights. Yet amid all this vibrancy, a heaviness settled in my chest. I felt detached from it all. Jake and I wandered through the crowd together, exchanging stories about our lives since he had gone off to college. Each laugh we shared chipped away at my discomfort. He was easy to talk to and surprisingly insightful for his age. We paused near a booth selling homemade lemonade when he suddenly turned serious. "Are you okay? You seem distant," he asked softly. I hesitated before responding. "Just trying to make sense of everything." His brow furrowed slightly as if he understood more than he let on but chose not to pry further. Instead, we resumed our playful banter as we sipped on our drinks. As night fell, the festival transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors under the stars. A local band began playing upbeat music nearby, encouraging couples to dance under the open sky. My heart raced unexpectedly as Jake pulled me toward the makeshift dance floor. "Come on. Just for fun." He laughed as he twirled me around. Caught up in the moment, I found myself laughing freely for the first time in ages, a sensation so foreign yet exhilarating. The world faded away as we danced together. It was just him and me beneath those twinkling lights. Then it happened, a fleeting moment where our eyes locked, and something shifted between us. It felt electric yet terrifying. An unspoken connection sparked in that instant made my heart race faster than any thrill ride at the fair. "What was that?" I thought as we stepped back from each other slowly. I tried to shake off what had just happened but found it difficult to ignore how alive I felt next to him, something I hadn't experienced in years with Mark. Later that night in our hotel room, silence enveloped us like a heavy blanket after an evening filled with laughter and music. Jake sat on his bed scrolling through his phone while I pretended to read a book propped against my knees, my mind racing with thoughts about what had transpired earlier. "Hey," he said suddenly, breaking through my thoughts without looking up from his screen. "Do you think Dad is happy?" I paused at his question. It struck me harder than expected. "I hope so," was all I managed to say while grappling with my own doubts about happiness in marriage. "Sometimes it feels like things aren't what they used to be," Jake added quietly. His words resonated deeply within me. They echoed my own feelings of discontentment and longing for something more meaningful than mere existence within my marriage. "I know what you mean," I replied slowly before looking up at him. Our eyes met again briefly before quickly darting away from each other's gaze like startled birds taking flight. The air thickened around us as unspoken emotions hung heavily between us, an undeniable tension that neither of us knew how to address or escape from entirely. As midnight approached and sleep began tugging at my eyelids heavily after such an eventful day filled with laughter mixed alongside confusion over emotions swirling inside me like leaves caught up in autumn winds outside our window, I heard Jake shift restlessly on his bed beside mine, still awake despite feigning sleepiness moments ago, when glancing over at him again revealed those familiar eyes staring back into mine intently, now instead lost within thoughts just like mine were moments ago too. And then without warning came an impulsive decision, a leap into uncharted waters where boundaries blurred between motherly affection toward her stepson versus something deeper lurking beneath layers hidden away carefully until now finally unveiled under starlit skies above them both. Our lips met unexpectedly, a brief collision that sent shockwaves coursing through every fiber of my being before pulling back, instantly realizing what had just happened left both stunned, speechless amidst lingering warmth enveloping them both, still hanging thickly within silence surrounding them now. What would this mean? How could this happen? Confusion reigned supreme within me, even though part of me craved more, despite knowing full well consequences awaited should anyone find out about this moment shared between two people who never intended for anything beyond familial bonds connecting them together. The festival buzzed around us, a vibrant tapestry of laughter, music, and the tantalizing aroma of fried foods. I stood beside my stepson, Jake, watching the chaos unfold in front of us. Children darted by, faces painted like superheroes, while couples strolled hand in hand beneath strings of colorful lights. The atmosphere was infectious, but my mind was still reeling from that kiss. "Want to try the funnel cake?" Jake suggested, breaking my reverie as he pointed toward a nearby stall. His eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, and despite the weight of guilt pressing down on me, I found myself nodding. "Sure," I replied softly. As we walked toward the stall, I struggled to shake off the remnants of our shared moment. The laughter around us felt distant, as if it belonged to another world. Standing in line for the funnel cake, Jake leaned closer to me. "You know," he said with a teasing grin, "I never thought I'd see you at a festival like this." I forced a chuckle in response. "Well, sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone." My heart raced at his proximity. It was maddening how easily he could draw me in. We ordered our food and wandered toward a quieter section of the park where families gathered for games and activities. As we settled onto a bench with our treats, I tried to focus on the sweet taste of powdered sugar rather than the turmoil inside me. "You look happy," Jake commented after taking a bite of his funnel cake. "Do I?" I asked, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than an expression of genuine joy. "Yeah," he said thoughtfully. "It's nice seeing you enjoy yourself." There was sincerity in his voice that caught me off guard. I looked away for a moment, searching for something to say that wouldn't betray my swirling emotions. "I guess it's easy to forget how fun these things can be," I replied finally. Jake nodded as he licked powdered sugar from his fingers. "We should do this more often, just hang out." A wave of warmth washed over me at his words. The connection between us deepened as we shared stories about our past family outings and laughed over silly memories, a lightness that felt intoxicating amidst my inner turmoil. In those moments, everything else faded away. It was just us against the world. As we finished our food and tossed aside empty plates, Jake turned serious for a moment. "You know," he began slowly, "I've always thought you were pretty cool." "Cool?" The word surprised me. It felt so juvenile yet somehow sincere coming from him. "Yeah," he continued with an earnestness that sent my heart racing again. "You're not just my stepmom, you're someone I look up to." "I appreciate that," I managed to say through the lump forming in my throat. It was difficult reconciling these feelings with what had happened just hours earlier. Suddenly feeling vulnerable under his gaze, I stood up abruptly and suggested we check out some games nearby, a desperate attempt to shift our dynamic back into familiar territory before things escalated again. As we played ring toss and balloon darts, my competitive spirit igniting, I couldn't help but notice how effortlessly Jake laughed and engaged with everyone around him. Each laugh echoed in my mind like a reminder of what could never be spoken aloud between us. In one particularly intense moment during a game where Jake aimed at balloons while I cheered him on enthusiastically from behind, he turned around mid-throw and caught my eye directly. Time seemed to freeze for just an instant before everything blurred back into motion again. "You're really good at this," he called out after popping 3 balloons in quick succession. "Maybe you should let me coach you more often." My voice came out lighter than anticipated despite feeling heavy inside again, the familiar tug-of-war between desire and guilt pulling at every fiber within me once more. After finishing up at the games area, both exhilarated by playful competition, we wandered further into the festival grounds where musicians played lively tunes nearby while couples swayed under twinkling lights strung above them like stars scattered across an evening sky. I felt drawn toward him again as if an invisible thread connected us, a force beyond reason or explanation binding our fates together beneath all these bright colors surrounding us now. Then came another moment, a pause amidst laughter when Jake's gaze lingered on mine too long. Something shifted between us again, the air thickening with unspoken words hanging heavily around us both. And just like that, we kissed again. Our lips met softly yet fervently, this time without hesitation or doubt lingering behind them anymore. The world faded once more as everything else melted away into oblivion, the sounds around becoming muted echoes lost within ourselves entirely until reality crashed back down upon us like waves crashing against rocky shores. "What are we doing?" My voice trembled slightly as panic surged through me now, the thrill quickly replaced by dread creeping into every corner of my mind once more. "I don't know," Jake admitted quietly after pulling back slightly yet still close enough for warmth radiating between us both lingering there still. "But it feels right." "Right? How could anything about this feel right?" My heart raced wildly against reason while guilt clawed at my insides, relentlessly reminding me who I was supposed to be, the wife, the mother figure, not whatever this was turning into now. Suddenly aware of how vulnerable we'd become standing there together beneath those twinkling lights, I pulled away abruptly, trying desperately to regain composure before spiraling further down this path leading nowhere good. "We need to stop," I said firmly, even though part of me screamed otherwise deep within, a battle raging silently inside while outside everything appeared normal still. Jake looked taken aback momentarily but then nodded slowly, understanding without needing further explanation. It hung heavily between us, unspoken yet palpable nonetheless. The festival continued its vibrant celebration around us while inside, I felt trapped within an emotional labyrinth, unable to find my way out anymore. The hotel room felt smaller than ever, the air thick with unspoken words. Jake and I exchanged glances, each of us wrestling with the weight of what had just happened. I could still taste the remnants of our kiss, a lingering sweetness that contrasted sharply with the turmoil brewing inside me. How had we come to this moment? A simple family trip had spiraled into something far more complicated. I busied myself by unpacking my suitcase, trying to focus on mundane tasks to quell the rising tide of confusion. I couldn't shake off the feeling that every glance between us now held a different meaning. The comfortable familiarity we once shared had morphed into something charged with tension and desire. Memories of family gatherings flashed through my mind, Jake laughing at my husband's jokes, his playful teasing during board games. Those moments felt distant now, overshadowed by our recent encounter. "Do you want to watch a movie?" Jake asked, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but I could hear an edge of uncertainty beneath it. "Sure," I replied, my tone barely above a whisper. The thought of sitting close to him again sent a shiver down my spine. I turned on the television and tried to concentrate on the flickering screen instead of the man beside me. As we settled onto the bed, an awkward distance formed between us. The movie played on without capturing my attention. Instead, I found myself acutely aware of every breath he took and every movement he made. My heart raced as I caught him glancing at me out of the corner of his eye. Remember when we went camping last summer? He asked suddenly, his voice breaking through my thoughts. I nodded slowly, recalling the laughter around the campfire and how we had all shared stories late into the night. Yeah, that was fun. It was, he smiled wistfully. You told that ridiculous ghost story. I chuckled softly at the memory, grateful for a momentary distraction from our current predicament. And you pretended to be scared. Jake laughed lightly, but there was something deeper in his eyes, a longing that mirrored my own feelings. As we reminisced about those simpler times, it became harder to ignore what lay between us now. Things have changed, he said quietly after a pause. Yes, I agreed, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach as my heart raced again in response to his words. Before I could process what was happening, Jake shifted closer to me on the bed. The warmth radiating from him was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. Our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity before instinct took over. Our lips met in another fleeting moment of passion that left me breathless. The kiss was electric yet fraught with confusion. I pulled away quickly, panic flooding my senses as reality crashed back and around us like a tidal wave. What were we doing? This wasn't just some fleeting moment, it was dangerous territory that threatened everything I held dear. I shouldn't have, I started but trailed off as shame washed over me like cold water. I know, Jake replied softly, his gaze dropping to his hands resting on his knees. But it felt right. Nothing about this felt right anymore, it only deepened my internal conflict about loyalty and desire battling within me like two opposing forces vying for dominance. As silence enveloped us again, I couldn't help but think about how easy it would be to slip further into this new reality, a world where Jake didn't just feel like a stepson but someone who understood me in ways no one else did anymore. The door creaked open suddenly. My husband's voice echoed through the hallway outside as he approached our room much earlier than expected from his trip back home. Grace. Are you in there? His cheerful tone sent another wave of panic crashing over me as dread settled heavily in my chest. I shot Jake a wide-eyed look filled with urgency. He quickly moved away from me as if trying to create distance before being caught together in this compromising situation. My heart pounded against my ribcage, every instinct screamed at me to hide or run away from this mess unfolding before us both. Just a minute. I called out nervously while scrambling off the bed towards the door, my mind racing with thoughts of how best to diffuse whatever situation awaited us outside those four walls filled with secrets now hanging thickly in the air between us like an invisible barrier ready to shatter any moment. I opened it just enough so that only half my face peeked out into view. My husband stood there holding 2 steaming cups of coffee from downstairs cafe while wearing an easy smile that made my heart ache with guilt all over again. There you are. Thought you might want some caffeine after your long day, he said cheerfully without noticing anything amiss between Jake and me inside our little bubble filled with tension moments before he arrived unexpectedly. Thanks. I managed to reply while forcing myself not to glance back at Jake, who remained still behind me, an enigmatic presence hiding beneath layers of uncertainty now swirling around us both like storm clouds gathering overhead threatening rain any second now. My husband stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his jovial demeanor contrasting sharply against everything else swirling within this room filled with secrets waiting patiently for their time under scrutiny's harsh light where truth would inevitably come crashing down upon all involved sooner or later. I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding as my husband's jovial laughter echoed through the room. He had always been the life of the party, but today, his presence felt like a heavy weight pressing down on me. Jake, still behind me, seemed to share my tension. I could sense his uncertainty mingling with my own as we exchanged a glance filled with unspoken words. Hey there. What's going on? My husband asked, his eyes darting between us. His smile was wide and genuine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow aware of the charged atmosphere in the room. Just chatting, I replied, forcing a casual tone that felt foreign to me. The light-heartedness of his demeanor contrasted sharply with the storm brewing within me. How could I maintain this facade when everything felt so precarious? Jake shifted slightly, breaking eye contact with me as he turned toward the window, pretending to admire the view outside. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over Springfield, but inside our hotel room, it felt like shadows were closing in around us. "Good to see you two getting along," my husband continued, oblivious to the tension that had thickened like fog. "I thought I'd surprise you both by coming back early." He stepped further into the room and dropped his suitcase onto one of the beds. The sight of him unpacking brought a rush of guilt crashing over me. Memories of last night flooded my mind, how we spent hours talking and laughing until we fell asleep side by side. We spent the night together. It had felt so easy then, so right in its own complicated way. But now, faced with my husband's cheerful demeanor and Jake's quiet presence, those moments felt like a distant memory tinged with danger. "Did you enjoy your trip?" Jake asked politely, still avoiding eye contact with either of us. "Yeah. It was great," my husband replied enthusiastically. "Got some good deals at that antique shop downtown." He rummaged through his suitcase for something, perhaps a trinket or souvenir to share, and for a moment, I was lost in thought. What had happened between Jake and me? Was it just an escape from reality? Or something more profound that I couldn't yet comprehend? My heart raced at the possibilities while also feeling trapped in this web we had woven together, one that now threatened to unravel at any moment. "Maybe we can check it out later," Jake suggested cautiously. His voice was steady but carried an undercurrent of tension that mirrored my own feelings. "Absolutely." My husband beamed at both of us as if we were all part of some grand family reunion rather than caught in an emotional tangle that could tear us apart. As he continued talking about his trip, filling the air with stories about quirky shops and friendly locals, I found myself zoning out. The words became background noise as I wrestled with my thoughts. How could I go back to normalcy after what had transpired? How could I pretend nothing had changed? The minutes dragged on painfully until finally, my husband excused himself to take a shower before dinner. As soon as he closed the bathroom door behind him, I turned to Jake. "We need to talk," I said softly but firmly. Jake looked at me with wide eyes. There was a mix of fear and understanding reflected in them. "About last night?" "Yes," I whispered urgently. "We can't keep pretending this didn't happen." He nodded slowly, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he developed over time. "I don't know what to say." "What do you want?" The question slipped out before I could stop myself. It hung heavily between us like an uninvited guest. "I don't know either," he admitted quietly. "But it feels different now." I took a step closer. Our proximity ignited something deep within me, a longing mixed with fear and confusion. "What does it feel like?" "It feels complicated." His gaze dropped to the floor as if searching for answers hidden within its patterns. In that moment of vulnerability shared between us, everything else faded away. The walls around us seemed to dissolve into nothingness as our emotions collided once more like waves crashing against rocks on a stormy shore. And then it happened again. Without thinking or planning or even questioning what lay ahead, we leaned into each other and kissed softly at first, a tentative exploration of what had blossomed between us amidst all this chaos. The kiss deepened naturally. It spoke volumes about our hidden desires and fears without needing words, a silent acknowledgement of everything we were grappling with inside ourselves while outside life continued its relentless march forward. Suddenly there was a sound from behind. The bathroom door creaked open just enough for my husband's voice to float into our bubble. "Hey! You guys ready for dinner?" Panic gripped me instantly. I pulled away from Jake as if burned by fire, the warmth we shared evaporating into thin air replaced by icy dread creeping into every corner of my mind. "Yes. Just give us a minute." I called back too brightly while trying desperately to regain composure. to mask whatever had just transpired between us both physically and emotionally under layers upon layers of practiced normalcy woven over years spent together as family members navigating these uncharted waters filled now with secrets waiting patiently beneath surfaces glossy yet fragile, a facade threatening collapse under pressure from truth buried deep within hearts tangled up together. Jake stepped back further away from me, his expression unreadable yet filled with turmoil, reflecting echoes swirling around us, reminding both how precarious this situation truly was now more than ever before. As we gathered ourselves before heading down for dinner, the weight pressing down upon shoulders grew heavier still. Each step toward that dining area felt like walking through quicksand, pulling deeper into unknown territory where consequences lurked, readying themselves for inevitable confrontation looming closer than ever before. The dining area was filled with the comforting smells of home-cooked meals, but a heavy silence enveloped me as I sat across from Jake. His eyes held a mixture of confusion and longing that mirrored my own tumultuous thoughts. I could feel the weight of our shared secret pressing down on us, thickening the air with tension. I forced a smile, trying to project an air of normalcy while my heart raced beneath the surface. "Everything okay?" Jake asked, his voice low enough that only I could hear. The question lingered between us, unspoken worries hanging like a cloud. "Yeah, just tired from the trip," I replied, attempting to sound casual. My words felt hollow, echoing off the walls as if they were searching for affirmation that everything was indeed fine. My mind raced back to the morning after we spent the night together. The sunlight had poured through the hotel room window, illuminating every corner and forcing me to confront the reality of what had happened. I had awoken to find Jake still asleep beside me, his features softened in slumber, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within me. Returning to the present moment at dinner, I stole a glance at my husband as he entered the room. His presence felt like an anchor in a stormy sea. He greeted us with a cheerful smile that belied his earlier abrupt departure for work. The sight of him stung my heart. He was blissfully unaware of the emotional chaos swirling just beneath our polite exchanges. "Hey there. How was your day?" he asked as he settled into his chair. "It was nice," I said, forcing cheerfulness into my tone. "We went to the local festival and enjoyed some time outdoors." Jake nodded along but didn't meet my gaze again. Instead, he stared down at his plate, pushing food around absent-mindedly while I watched him with a mix of admiration and guilt. As dinner progressed, small talk filled the gaps where deeper conversations might have thrived. My husband recounted details about his meetings while Jake occasionally chimed in with comments that felt almost rehearsed. Each laugh from my husband felt like another reminder of how far we had drifted apart, a distance exacerbated by what Jake and I had shared. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table, an unexpected text from my husband's work colleague about an urgent matter he needed to attend to tomorrow morning. My stomach twisted at this interruption. It wasn't just any text, it was his reason for being away longer than planned. "Looks like I'll need to head in early tomorrow," he said after reading it aloud. "But it shouldn't take long." A wave of panic washed over me at this news. It meant more time alone with Jake and less time for me to figure out how to navigate this precarious situation without raising suspicion. "Do you want me to come with you?" I offered too quickly, hoping to divert attention from our secret rendezvous. "No need," he replied lightly. "I'll be fine." The conversation shifted back to mundane topics while my mind raced ahead. What would happen if we were caught? The thought sent shivers down my spine. Visions of our lives unraveling played out vividly in my imagination. After dinner concluded and plates were cleared away, we moved into the living area where remnants of laughter echoed from earlier conversations during our trip floated through the air like ghosts haunting us now. There was an unspoken understanding between Jake and me that this moment felt fragile yet electric, every glance charged with unsaid words waiting for release. "Want to go for a walk?" Jake suggested suddenly, breaking through my spiraling thoughts. I hesitated but nodded slowly, fresh air seemed necessary amid all this confusion swirling around us. As we stepped outside into the cool evening breeze, it felt like stepping into another realm entirely, one where secrets could breathe freely away from prying eyes. We walked side by side in silence at first, the kind of silence filled not with discomfort but rather an unspoken connection deepening between us with each step taken away from our family's watchful gaze. "I can't believe how quickly everything changed," Jake finally said softly as we reached a secluded spot near some trees lining the edge of our hotel grounds. "I never expected, well, any of this." His words hung heavily in the air. They echoed what had been tumbling around inside me since that first kiss ignited something neither of us anticipated or wanted yet couldn't deny anymore either. "I know," I replied quietly, feeling both exhilarated and terrified by this new reality we faced together, a reality laden with consequences neither one fully grasped yet dared not ignore any longer either. Just then, headlights swept across our path as another car pulled up near the entrance. My heart dropped instantly as recognition washed over me. It was my husband returning earlier than expected. Panic surged through me. Every instinct screamed at us to retreat back inside before being caught out here together under these circumstances. "What do we do?" Jake whispered urgently as we exchanged frantic glances, the urgency palpable between us now more than ever before. "I don't know." My voice trembled slightly. Fear gripped me tightly as footsteps echoed closer toward where we stood concealed behind trees, their shadows cast long against dimming light surrounding us both, now threatening exposure looming ever closer. In that moment suspended between two worlds, the thrill of forbidden desires clashing against stark realities, I knew one thing above all else. Nothing would ever be quite so simple again once those doors swung wide open, revealing everything hidden underneath layers built upon years spent together as family. The doors swung open, and time seemed to freeze. My heart raced, caught in the chaos of emotions I could no longer contain. There he stood, my husband, his expression shifting from confusion to shock as he took in the scene before him. The air thickened with tension, a palpable weight that settled heavily on my chest. "Grace," he asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and concern. I felt exposed, as if the very fabric of my life was unraveling before me. My stepson shifted slightly beside me, uncertainty flickering across his face. We were trapped in this moment, suspended between what had been and what could never be again. "Hey, honey," I managed to say, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my lips. I hoped it masked the truth that lay just beneath the surface. "You're home early." The words tasted bitter, they hung in the air like an uninvited guest. "I thought I'd surprise you," he replied, stepping further into the room. His gaze darted between us, searching for answers that neither of us could provide. "I didn't expect to find you two, together." The emphasis on together sent a shiver down my spine. My mind raced through the possibilities of what could happen next. Would he confront us? Would he lash out? Or would he simply walk away, leaving our family shattered? The silence stretched painfully as we stood there, three lives intertwined by love and secrets, but at this moment defined by betrayal. "I was just helping Grace with some things," my stepson said quickly, his voice steady yet strained. He tried to bridge the chasm that had opened between us all, but it felt futile. How could we explain what had transpired? How could we articulate feelings that defied logic? "Things?" My husband's tone was sharp now, cutting through the tension like a knife. "What kind of things?" His eyes narrowed as if searching for hidden truths in our expressions. "Just packing," I interjected hastily, desperate to regain control over the spiraling situation. "We were going over our plans for tomorrow's trip." The lie slipped easily off my tongue, but it did nothing to ease the heaviness in the room. My husband's brow furrowed, doubt flickered across his face. "Plans? You didn't mention any plans." There was an edge to his voice now, a warning that hinted at deeper issues simmering beneath our surface. We were just discussing some ideas, I said again, forcing a lightness into my tone that felt utterly false. You know how it is, sometimes it's easier to brainstorm without distractions. He crossed his arms over his chest and leaned against the doorframe, a defensive posture that only added to my anxiety. Distractions? Is that what you call this? He gestured between us with frustration evident in every line of his face. I wanted to scream at him, tell him about how invisible I felt most days and how this connection with my stepson had awakened something deep within me, but instead, I swallowed hard and held back tears threatening to spill forth. Look, I began cautiously, trying to find words that would mend rather than break apart our fragile family unit further. I appreciate your concern. His eyes softened slightly at my acknowledgement but remained guarded as if waiting for me to unravel completely before him. I'm sorry for not being more transparent about everything, I continued slowly. Things have been complicated lately. Complicated? He scoffed lightly. Disbelief laced his tone as he glanced at our son standing awkwardly beside me, a boy caught between two worlds now colliding violently into one another. Yes. Complicated. I raised my voice slightly without meaning to. Frustration surged within me like a tide threatening to drown any semblance of calm left between us all. Maybe if you'd paid more attention. His words trailed off into silence. We both knew where they led, the unspoken grievances piling up over years spent together yet feeling miles apart emotionally. I'm trying. My voice cracked as desperation seeped through every syllable spoken aloud, now echoing back at me like an accusation from deep within myself too. What had happened here tonight was more than just a kiss or stolen moments shared behind closed doors. It was an awakening of sorts, a realization that perhaps we were all hiding from something far greater than ourselves. You're both hiding, he muttered under his breath but loud enough for us both to hear clearly. The accusation hung heavy in the air as each word pierced through layers built upon years spent together navigating life's complexities while avoiding deeper connections altogether until now. The silence stretched again until it became unbearable. Emotions swirled around us like autumn leaves caught in a gusty wind, chaotic yet beautiful all at once, but ultimately destructive too if left unchecked. I think we need some space, my husband finally said after what felt like hours passed within seconds. Resignation etched itself onto every line of his face, now marred by disappointment mingling with anger. The reality settling around us like fog creeping silently through trees surrounding our home. Space? What did that even mean anymore? Did it mean distance or separation or worse yet, an end? I'll go stay with my sister for a few days, he continued flatly without looking either one of us directly in the eye anymore. It hurt deeply knowing how close we were standing yet feeling miles apart still. My heart sank further into despair hearing those words spoken aloud. They echoed hauntingly against walls once filled with laughter, echoing memories shared long ago before everything changed forever. As he turned away from us towards the door leading out into nightfall beyond those walls closing behind him, I felt lost amidst swirling thoughts racing through my mind. What would happen next? Would this be it, the final chapter written upon pages filled previously only with joy, now tainted forevermore by choices made under duress, fueled by longing unrecognized until too late? I glanced sideways towards my stepson who stood frozen beside me, still processing everything unfolding around him, a storm brewing silently within those deep-set eyes, reflecting back uncertainty mirrored back towards mine. What do we do now? He whispered softly, breaking through heavy silence left lingering behind after father departed, leaving only shadows cast where light once shone brightly, illuminating paths forward ahead. In response, I found no words fitting enough nor answers clear enough amidst turmoil raging inside myself, so instead, I simply reached out, grasping hold tightly onto hope lingering faintly still somewhere deep beneath surface layers built upon years spent together navigating life's complexities while avoiding deeper connections altogether until now. The air was thick with unspoken tension as we sat around the dining table, the clinking of forks and knives punctuating the silence. My husband, Mark, had returned home earlier than expected, his presence a stark reminder of the reality I had tried so hard to avoid. Across from me, my stepson, Jake, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The warmth that once enveloped us felt like a distant memory now overshadowed by the weight of our secret. "Everything all right?" Mark asked, his brow furrowing slightly as he glanced between us. There was an edge to his voice that hinted at his suspicion. I forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil swirling inside me. "Just tired from the trip," I replied, my voice steady despite the chaos within. "It's been a long day." I could feel Jake's eyes on me, searching for reassurance that everything was fine. But how could I reassure him when I didn't even know if I believed it myself? As we ate, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mark was watching us more closely than usual. The way he paused before taking a bite or how he leaned slightly forward when he spoke made it clear that he sensed something amiss. Each moment stretched into eternity as we navigated through polite conversation about mundane topics, work schedules and upcoming family events, while underneath lay an undercurrent of unresolved feelings. "Did you enjoy your time away?" Jake asked Mark, breaking the silence again with an innocent question that felt loaded with implications. The room seemed to hold its breath as Mark answered with a casual nod. "Yeah, it was good. Got some time to think." He glanced at me then, his gaze lingering just long enough for me to feel exposed. What had he thought about? Did he sense the distance growing between us? The dinner dragged on, every bite feeling like lead in my stomach. My mind raced back to our shared moments, the laughter at the festival and the warmth of our embrace after everything had changed. How could I reconcile those memories with this facade of normalcy? When dessert arrived, a simple apple pie, I found myself unable to eat another bite. Instead, I pushed my plate away and took a sip of water to quell my rising anxiety. "Grace?" Mark's voice cut through my thoughts again. "You okay? You seem off tonight." I met his gaze and saw concern etched across his features. It almost made me feel guilty for what had happened between Jake and me. "I'm fine," I insisted too quickly, forcing another smile that felt brittle against my lips. Jake shifted again in his seat. I could see him struggling with his own emotions too. We were trapped in this delicate dance together, each step filled with uncertainty and fear of what would happen next if we acknowledged what lay beneath our surface interactions. As dinner concluded, Mark stood up to clear the table while Jake remained seated across from me. The moment felt heavy. We were both acutely aware of how close we were sitting yet how far apart we truly felt. "What do you think will happen now?" Jake whispered as soon as Mark left the room for a moment. "I don't know," I admitted quietly, feeling vulnerable under the weight of his gaze. "We have to be careful." His expression shifted slightly. There was a flicker of something, fear or perhaps longing, as he nodded slowly in response. Mark returned just then with empty plates in hand. He must have sensed something lingering between us because he paused briefly before setting them down on the counter nearby. "I'll take care of this," he said casually, but there was an intensity behind those words that made my heart race even faster than before. Once Mark turned away again, Jake leaned closer toward me conspiratorially. There was urgency in his tone as he whispered urgently, "What do you want?" The question hung heavy in the air between us, a question that demanded an answer but one that felt impossible to articulate clearly amidst all this chaos swirling around us now. "I want things to go back to normal," I finally replied softly after a moment's pause, my voice barely above a whisper, but deep down inside myself, I knew normalcy would never return after everything we had crossed together so far. Just then, Mark re-entered carrying 2 glasses filled with ice water. He placed them down on either side of our plates without saying anything further, which only added more weight onto this already strained atmosphere surrounding us all tonight. "We should watch something together later," Mark suggested lightly, trying hard not to let any hint slip through regarding what had transpired earlier today. But even those words fell flat against silence hanging thick like fog enveloping everything around. As evening wore on into night, and finally settled into quiet stillness. I found myself caught between wanting nothing more than escape from this tangled web woven tightly around our lives while simultaneously yearning desperately for clarity over choices made recently. With every passing hour, I could feel tensions mounting higher still. The clock ticking slowly away while shadows danced around corners illuminated by dim light spilling softly through windows nearby, casting fleeting glimpses onto walls where secrets lingered, waiting patiently beneath surface layers, begging for release. When bedtime finally arrived, I retreated into my room feeling exhausted, both physically and emotionally drained. But sleep eluded me completely, instead leaving thoughts racing wildly through mind, replaying moments shared just hours ago alongside fears looming larger than life itself. What would tomorrow bring? Would things remain unchanged, or would they spiral further out beyond control, leading everyone down paths uncharted, full consequences yet unseen, lurking just beyond horizon, waiting patiently until dawn broke anew. The morning sun crept through the curtains, casting stripes of light across the floor. I lay there, tangled in sheets, my heart racing at the thought of what had transpired. The weight of my decisions pressed heavily on my chest. I could hear the soft hum of the coffee maker in the kitchen, a reminder that life continued outside this moment. I glanced at my stepson, still asleep, his face serene. The events of last night played in a loop, our shared laughter, the way his eyes sparkled with mischief, and then that kiss. A rush of warmth flooded me as I recalled how easily we slipped into each other's arms, as if it were always meant to be. But now, with dawn breaking, reality loomed larger than ever. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up slowly. Each step felt like navigating a tightrope stretched over an abyss. I needed to confront this chaos I had invited into our lives. My husband would be home soon. He was supposed to return today, but his early arrival was an unexpected twist that left me scrambling to piece together a semblance of normalcy. In the kitchen, I poured myself a cup of coffee and took a deep breath. The aroma filled the air with warmth and familiarity, comforting yet suffocating all at once. My mind raced with thoughts about how to handle this delicate situation. Would I tell my husband? Could I even voice what had happened? Just then, my stepson emerged from the bedroom, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He looked at me with a mixture of confusion and concern. "Morning," he said quietly. "Good morning," I replied, trying to sound casual despite the tension hanging between us. He shuffled toward the coffee pot and poured himself a cup. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, and an awkward silence enveloped us both. It was as if we were two ships passing in the night, close enough to feel each other's presence but unable to bridge the chasm that now separated us. "Did you sleep well?" he asked after a moment. I hesitated before answering. "Not really." My voice was barely above a whisper. He nodded knowingly but didn't press further. Instead, he leaned against the counter and stared out the window at the brightening sky. "It's going to be a nice day," he remarked absently. "Yeah," I agreed, though my mind was elsewhere, fixated on what lay ahead when my husband returned home. The minutes dragged on like hours as we sipped our coffee in silence. Each tick of the clock reminded me that time was running out. Soon we would have to face the truth lurking beneath our shared glances and unspoken words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I heard the front door creak open, a sound so innocuous yet filled with dread for what it heralded. My heart raced as footsteps echoed through our home. "Grace?" My husband called out cheerfully from the hallway. I exchanged an anxious glance with my stepson. We both instinctively straightened up as if preparing for an impending storm. "In here?" I managed to call back, forcing cheerfulness into my tone that felt utterly forced under these circumstances. My husband appeared in moments, his face brightened by excitement from being home early but quickly faltering when he noticed our tense posture. "What's going on?" he asked curiously as he stepped closer. "Nothing," I said too quickly. It came out more like a plea than a denial. He studied us both for a long moment before shaking his head slightly as if trying to dispel whatever suspicion lingered in his mind. "I brought back some pastries," he announced instead, lifting a small bag triumphantly as if it could erase any doubts hanging thickly between us. "Thanks," I replied weakly while internally chastising myself for not being able to mask my emotions better. As we gathered around the table for breakfast, a ritual that had become increasingly strained, I couldn't shake off how different everything felt now compared to just days ago when laughter filled these walls without hesitation or fear weighing us down. "So how was your trip?" my stepson asked casually while buttering his croissant nervously. It struck me how much effort went into maintaining this fragile facade we were all desperately clinging onto. "It was good. Productive meetings," my husband replied enthusiastically before turning his gaze toward me expectantly as if waiting for me to chime in too. But all that came out was silence laced with tension simmering just beneath surface-level pleasantries exchanged over breakfast chatter. We ate quietly while stealing glances at one another, the unspoken words hanging heavily between us like fog rolling through an empty street at dawn, palpable yet intangible until finally breaking under pressure. A confession ready to spill forth from somewhere deep within me yearning for release. Finally unable to contain myself any longer, I pushed back my chair abruptly causing it scrape against tile flooring echoing loudly around us startling everyone into silence. "We need to talk." My heart raced furiously against ribs like thunder crashing through stillness surrounding us. Anticipation hung thick like smoke filling lungs choking off air leaving no room left for anything else but truth waiting impatiently just beyond reach. "What do you mean?" My husband's brow furrowed in confusion while looking between us both searching for answers hidden behind expressions carefully crafted masks worn far too long now. Words failed me momentarily as emotions surged within, my resolve wavering under weight pressing down heavier than ever before threatening everything familiar unraveling right before eyes. Before another word escaped or tensions could escalate further, a knock resounded unexpectedly against front door shattering fragile atmosphere surrounding us instantly drawing attention away from impending confrontation looming dangerously close. My heart sank deeper still knowing full well whatever awaited beyond threshold might change everything forever leaving no way back once crossed.